In China, men wrote, or rather painted, on silk. Silk was very expensive. So expensive that they tried to find a substitute. They succeeded, and in the year 105 AD, the Chinese invented paper. The new invention used only rags and other waste materials like bits of rope or old fishing net. After the materials had been sorted, the bits and pieces were pounded together until everything was broken down to very short fibers. The short fibers had to be thoroughly washed. It was a very simple process. The paper is made in just the same way in India today. Next, the fibers are mixed with clean water. The mixture is tested. Then, a thin layer of fibers and water is taken up on a bamboo tray or a mold. The tray catches the fibers and allows most of the water to drain away. The slight shake given to the tray causes the fibers to knit together. The edges are squared up. The sheet of paper is laid down onto a piece of cloth. After pressing, the sheets are put out to dry. Finally, the surface is treated with gum or starch, and the paper is then ready to be used. For 600 years, the Chinese kept the secret of how to make paper within their own empire. Then, in the year 750, it was discovered by the Arabs from some Chinese whom they'd taken prisoner. The Arabs spread the knowledge through trade and conquest. By the year 900, people were making paper in Egypt. Then the knowledge spread to Spain. France, and most important of all, to Italy. The factories of Fabriano in Italy made paper for most of Europe. To identify the different factories, watermarks were invented. These were made by putting extra pieces of wire on the surface of the trays, made now not of bamboo, but of wire, and the trays are dipped in just the same way. Soon, other towns in Europe started to make paper for themselves. Then, in 1450, printing was invented. Printing presses used up paper much faster than it had ever been used before. much more paper was needed. Paper mills were set up in other countries, including our own. Refugees and colonists took the crafts of printing and paper making over to the New World. And so, in just about 1600 years, the knowledge of how to make paper spread across the world. The sheets of paper made in the new mills were still formed in the same way as they had been in China centuries before. Then, about 1800, a machine was invented which would make paper in one continuous sheet. Paper fibers and water were run out onto an endless moving wire belt. After some of the moisture had been removed, the paper ran over and between many drying drums. Finally, at the far end of the machine, the paper was wound onto a reel. Miles of paper could be made in a few hours. This made the shortage of rags, which was already serious, even worse. Many other things were broken down to fibers. Potato tops, cabbage stalks, fir cones, straw, and even nettles. But none of these were found to be a really good substitute for rags. Printing machines were working faster and faster, and the shortage became worse and worse. Then, in 1860, good paper was made from esparto grass. Esparto grass comes from Spain and North Africa. The grass is pulled and not cut so as to avoid damaging the plant. It is given its first pounding before it is dispatched to the paper mills, where it has to be boiled, washed, bleached, and beaten for many hours until it is broken down to separate fibers. In 1880, paper was made successfully from wood. The best trees for paper making are spruce and other soft woods, which come chiefly from Canada and Scandinavia. When the timber has been cut, it is taken to the river, where the logs are floated down to the mills. At the paper mills, the bark is first removed and the wood is reduced to small chips. It is then treated with chemicals or ground up into separate fibers. The fibers of wood pulp are beaten together with china clay and coloring matter. and the mixture is piped down to the paper-making machines. These vast machines work on the same principle as the one that was invented in 1800, only the modern machines work much faster. Many machines turn out more than 300 miles of paper every 24 hours, but a modern newspaper uses up 2 or 3 times as much in a single night. But even today, when special fine quality paper is needed, it is made by hand. Legal documents, paper for some scientific purposes, paper for drawing or painting. These are among the things that the machine, for all its efficiency, cannot do as well as the old hand process. And this hand process is exactly the same as the one that was invented in China nearly 2,000 years ago.